Can I have like 2 minutes to find a needle?
Yeah, so you need a needle that I'm gonna give you all the time. So you need any sort of needles. It's fine. I'm gonna like maybe show you what I've got. You can really do with any sort of needles. The thicker the needle, the better. That's my suggestion.
I even have a tapestry needle somewhere. I just need to find it.
Yeah, I'm gonna find my needles too. Hi, everybody.
Yeah. Go, take your time. And then even the threads, if you have a thick threads is better. So if anyone has any thicker threads, we can do a double, and I'm gonna show you how to do a double because I have a very thin thread, but in case.
Where the fuck? I've got a long time ago, I just found wax coated actual like bookbinding thread.
Oh, wow. That's a very good one.
Oh, okay. I'm ready to go, gang.
I don't have any supplies, but I'm taking notes for when I do.
Yeah, take notes, and I'm recording it, so I'm gonna post these after. So anyone that wants to also look it up in case there's anything, you can all do it. Caroline, let us know if you have the supplies. And like these kind of like binding, I use it when I travel usually. Now I have a very tiny stapler that I got in Japan. But when I travel, this is usually the best way of like making zines for me, because you don't need a long arm stapler and you don't need anything really. You just need to find needle and threads. And it's also nice if you want to do like a card for people now, or you want to do like just like I've been thinking right now of doing like some little letters for friends. There are way above a bunch of like what do you call it, forever stamps for the US and abroad. And I'm just gonna do like a bunch of little zines that are like one-offs with stuff that I find at home. And this is kind of the sweetest thing to do it right now. So should I start?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, so with whatever sheets of paper, I'm gonna do it with 3 sheets of paper right now. So you just fold it enough, the way that you do with the zine. Then the first thing to do is find the thickest needle that you've got, just because you'll have to make a hole that's thick enough to go with the thread. And so I have a good thick needle here. And you're gonna make first the 3 holes. The first hole should be in the center of the page, or as close to the center as you can. Then the second one, I tend to do it like 1 inch from the edge. The more apart they are, usually the better it is, just so at least it holds it a little bit more in place. But it doesn't have to be apart necessarily. But yeah, I usually do 1 inch from the edge on the right, and I make a hole there. And then I do 1 inch on the other side again. And then I do the second one there.
1 inch from the
edge of the paper. I don't know if you can see it, but like that's when I do it. That's what I did it at this distance.
Hi, Mika.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
I might leave, not so. But
We're
I wanted to check in. Cool. Loving it.
So 1 in the middle, and then 2 on the sides. 1 inch from the edge. 1, and then 2 is over here. Now, the hard part, which is putting the thread in the needle. And obviously, the thicker the thread, the easier it is. Let's try and get it. Oh, I got it right away. Fuck yes. Okay. So because my thread is small, I'm gonna do a double. If your thread is like thick, you can even just do a single thread. I'll show you what I mean by double so that you can see. These scissors don't cut, even though they're specifically made for this. Okay, so this is double, if you know what I mean. I'm just like.
How long do you know to make the thread?
You can make, it's better to make it long. You really don't need too long, but it's better to make it longer. You can always cut it at the very end.
Like about how long? Like arm's length?
Now that I'm doing a double, I'm doing it usually the size of the page. I don't know if you can see it because it's a small, maybe you can see it here.
Oh, great.
It's a little bit longer than the page actually. I did a page and a half, let's say, right now.
Great.
But it really doesn't need to be very long. So now, based on where you're doing the first one, it will basically, at the very end, if you want the threads to come out from the back, then you start from the back going forward. But if you want the threads to come out from in the inside, then you do the other way around. So I usually do it starting from the outside, going to the inside, because I prefer the threads to be outside. And so I just go first with the center, and I do the first one here. Then you can either go right or left. You go to one of the other two holes that are there. Make sure every step on the way to pull the thread, because the tighter the thread is, the more it holds the pages. Especially if you want to do a zine that has like more than 3 pages, which is what I'm doing now. It's better to have it as tight as possible so that like you can hold it there.
Is there a knot at the end of the thread?
Yeah, no, I don't do a knot. I just make sure not to go over with it.
Okay.
If you know. And then you go back from the outside again to the other hole that's on the opposite end of it. So you then pick it up back from the inside.
Hold on. Okay, so you go then all the way to the last hole.
Yes, you first go, so you start right. You start center, then you go to one end, and then from the outside you go to the other end. Keep pulling it, but don't pull it all the way to lose the thread back in, if you know what I mean. And then you go back in the center one. That's it. And at this point,
oh, it all looks like a long line.
Looks like a what?
Like a long line, like a
yes, correct. Yeah, it looks like a continuous line from the inside. That's what it looks like from the inside. And then the back, you just do a little knot and then cut it.
Wow, so easy.
Yeah. That would be it.
Can you repeat the first steps, Lele, that I missed? Sorry.
So the first step, I don't remember what you missed.
So
basically,
when I got you were talking about inches.
Okay, So you do the first hole. I'm gonna try and do it again, so at least you see it again.
Thank you.
So you fold in half the page, okay? You make the first hole right in the center, or as center as you can. And then you do the second and third hole 1 inch from the edge. So one here and one here. And then once you do that, then you start doing you start putting the hole, you start putting the thread through. If you want, I'll do it again quickly.
No, no, it's okay. I was right on time.
Any questions?
How many pages can this very simple like binding hold?
It really depends on how thick, to be honest, your thread is. If you have a thick threads, you can even do like 20 pages. Okay. With thin threads, like the one that I'm using here, I would advise not to do more than like 6 or 7 pages. But one thing that you could do that I didn't do it now, but I can try and do it now for you, it's passing it more than once. So you do a longer, you take a longer piece of thread, and then you start. Maybe I can start, yeah, let's start again from the outside. I go through with it. I go to one side. Then I go, oh. Then I go all the way to the other side. Let's keep it there. Oh, shoot. The two ends of the needles, the two ends of the thread need to be at the same length if you're doing a double. If you have a very thick thread, you don't really need to do a double. You can just do one side. So you go back to one edge and the other edge, and then back in the center. Then once you're back in the center, you can do it again. One end. Then the other end. And then in the center. But in order for it to like also end up in the same place, you have to do it 3 times if you want to do it like multiples. I don't know if these made it more complicated, but this way we made it very solid, and you could be using more pages this way. But this way also, yeah, tell me.
Sorry, I was just going to ask, is there any instance where you would do more than 3 holes, where you would maybe make 2 in between the center and the end?
You could be. I'm sure that that's totally fine. I don't think it's like a real issue for it. It just makes it more likely that if you do more holes, once you pull the thread, it makes it more likely that it like kind of crumbles in between. With 3 is kind of just like when you staple it, I think, so it holds it more in place. There's a way of doing like a much more complex binding that is done with thread, which is the Japanese binding. And for that, you also prepare holes before, but it's better to use a different kind of needles. And with that, you do a series of holes that are 1 inch apart, or you try to keep it like the same distance throughout, but you make the needle go in the corner of the page. But it's also a different kind of binding in the sense that you don't put a center bind like this, but you basically put together a series of pages folded like that, one on top of each other, and then you bind it in on the sides. But yeah, I mean, usually the 3-hole seems to be the way that holds it in place without bending it too much, and makes a straight line in the inside and outside.
And this band, like, besides of how it looks, why to choose it over the stapler?
I mean, this I was saying is not really it's more like I use it when I travel, or I used to use it more when I travel, because maybe I didn't have a stapler, a long arm stapler. Not everyone has it. It's difficult to find. It's weird, especially in places like Italy. For some reason, they have like more printers that stable for you, and if you want to do your own thing, it's not super easy. So I end up often doing these when I travel. And then there's the aesthetic choice. Maybe you want to have these more crafty things. This was a good way of showing it now, because I feel like not many people have a long arm stapler at home, and you can still make like a diary or a zine or like cards for people while you're at home.
You can carry your book like a little purse.
Yeah, that's the other cool thing. I like the fact that there's these things sticking out, actually. I think in some cases, it's actually like a perfect aesthetic choice. That's such a good thread that you've got.
This?
Yeah.
It's way too heavy duty for it's just like 2 pieces of paper. Yeah, it's legit. It's legit. It's from what's the big art supply store?
Blake?
Yes.
Cool. If there's no more questions on these, I'll stop the recording. Any more questions on these?
We should do a collective scene.
Yeah,
Another
from
one more to
apart.
toys. Yeah.
Yes.